Alexander Hart was a man who seemed to have it all. He was tall, handsome, and carried himself with an air of confidence that commanded respect. At just 42 years old, he had built a business empire worth billions. His name was known across industries, and his influence reached far beyond the boardroom. Yet, despite his success, there was something missing in Alexander's life, a hole so deep that no amount of money or power could fill it. For 10 long years, Alexander had been searching for one person, Emily Carter. She had been the love of his life, the woman he planned to spend forever with. But one day, without warning, she vanished. There were no goodbyes, no explanations, just silence. The police investigated but found nothing. No leads, no traces, nothing. It was as if Emily had disappeared off the face of the earth. And while the world moved on, Alexander couldn't. Every night he replayed their happiest moments in his mind. The way she laughed, the way her eyes sparkled when she smiled, the warmth of her hand in his. But those memories only made the pain sharper. To cope, Alexander threw himself into work. He expanded his company, acquired new ventures, and became even more ruthless in negotiations. People admired him, feared him even, but few knew the truth about the man behind the suit. Beneath the polished exterior was someone broken, haunted by the ghost of a love lost. Nights were the hardest. Alone in his penthouse apartment overlooking the city lights, Alexander often stared at an old photograph of Emily. It was the last picture taken of them together, a simple snapshot from a summer picnic. In it, they looked so happy, so carefree. That happiness felt like another lifetime now. One chilly evening in November, after a particularly grueling day at the office, Alexander decided to take a drive. He wasn't sure where he was headed, but he needed to clear his head. The city streets blurred past as he drove aimlessly, eventually leading him to a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of town. A small diner caught his eye. Its neon sign flickered faintly, casting a soft glow onto the sidewalk. Something about the place felt welcoming, almost nostalgic. On impulse, Alexander parked his car and stepped inside. The diner was cozy with red vinyl booths, checkered floors, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee hanging in the air. A jukebox in the corner played a slow, melancholic tune. It wasn't busy, just a couple of truck drivers chatting at the counter and an elderly man reading a newspaper in the corner. Alexander slid into a booth near the window, trying to shake off the weight of the day. Moments later, a young waitress approached with a menu in hand. Her name tag read, Lila, and though she looked exhausted, she greeted him with a polite smile. "What can I get for you?" she asked, her voice warm but tinged with fatigue. "Coffee, black," Alexander replied, barely glancing up. As Lila turned to leave, something caught his attention. Peeking out of her apron pocket was a small, worn leather wallet. Inside, partially visible, was a photograph. Alexander froze. The woman in the photo looked strikingly familiar. Could it be? His heart began to race as he leaned forward slightly, squinting to get a better look. Yes, there was no mistaking it. The woman in the photo was Emily. Alexander's mind went blank. For a moment, he forgot how to breathe. How could this be possible? Was he imagining things? Desperate for answers, he reached out impulsively and grabbed the wallet before Lila could walk away. Flipping it open, he stared at the photo. It was definitely Emily, looking younger but unmistakably her. Beside her stood a little girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, smiling brightly. The resemblance between them was uncanny. They had the same nose, the same chin, the same radiant smile. Alexander's hands trembled as he held the wallet, his thoughts swirling. Before he could say anything, Lila returned with his coffee. Seeing him holding her wallet, her expression shifted from confusion to anger. "What are you doing?" she demanded, snatching the wallet back. Her cheeks flushed red, and her tone was sharp. I'm sorry," Alexander stammered, still struggling to process what he had seen. "That photo, is that your mother?" Lila hesitated, her guard dropping slightly. "Yes, it is. Why does it matter to you?" Alexander didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled out his phone and scrolled through his photos until he found one, an old picture of himself and Emily standing side by side, arms wrapped around each other, both beaming with joy. He showed it to Lila, watching as her eyes widened in shock. "You knew my mom?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Yes," Alexander replied, his own voice hoarse. "But I haven't seen her in over a decade. What happened to her? Where is she now?" Lila looked conflicted, glancing around the nearly empty diner as if weighing whether to trust him. Finally, she sat down across from him, clutching the wallet tightly in her hands. "My mom left our hometown when I was really young," she began slowly. "She never told me exactly why, but she said it was to keep me safe. We lived under different names for years, moving from place to place. Then she got sick. Cancer. She fought hard, but—" Lila paused, swallowing hard. "She passed away 5 years ago." The words hit Alexander like a punch to the gut. All these years he had clung to the hope that Emily was alive somewhere, waiting for him. But hearing that she was gone forever shattered that fragile dream. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he blinked them away, focusing instead on the little girl sitting across from him. This was Emily's daughter. His mind raced with questions. Had Emily left because of him? Did she think he couldn't protect her? Or was there something else, something far more dangerous that had driven her away? Determined to learn the truth, Alexander asked Lila if she knew anything about why Emily had fled. Lila shook her head, explaining that her mother had always been secretive about her past. "She used to tell me stories about you sometimes," Lila admitted softly. "She said you were smart, kind, and funny. But she also said you were reckless. She loved you, though, more than anything." Alexander's heart ached at her words. Reckless. That word echoed in his mind. Had his actions somehow pushed Emily away? Or was there something darker lurking beneath the surface? As the night wore on, Alexander realized he couldn't leave things as they were. He offered to help Lila financially, urging her to quit her job at the diner and focus on finishing school. Though hesitant at first, Lila agreed, sensing that Alexander genuinely cared, not just about her mother's memory, but about her too. Little did either of them know, this chance encounter would set off a chain of events that would unravel secrets buried deep in the past and change their lives forever. Over the next few days, Alexander couldn't stop thinking about Lila and the photograph. The image of Emily with her daughter, their daughter, was etched into his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw their faces. Emily's soft smile, the child's bright, innocent grin. It was overwhelming both emotionally and mentally. He had spent years believing that Emily had simply walked out of his life, leaving him behind without explanation. But now, faced with the reality that she'd been protecting their child, everything felt different. Alexander began visiting the diner more often, not just to see Lila, but also to understand her better. At first, Lila seemed guarded, unsure of what to make of this strange man who claimed to have known her mother so well. But as the days passed, she started opening up. She told him stories about Emily, how she sang silly songs while cooking dinner, how she taught Lila to ride a bike despite being terrified of falling herself, and how she always made sure Lila felt loved, no matter how hard life got. Hearing these anecdotes brought Emily back to life for Alexander in ways he hadn't thought possible. For the first time in years, he could hear her voice again, feel her presence. One evening after closing time at the diner, Lila invited Alexander to sit down for a proper conversation. They found a quiet corner booth, away from prying ears. Lila pulled out the wallet once more, carefully removing the faded photograph. On the back, written in faint pencil, were 3 words: "Keep him safe." "What does this mean?" Alexander asked, his voice trembling. Lila shrugged, though her expression betrayed a mix of sadness and frustration. "I don't know. Mom never explained it, but I think it might be about you." The revelation sent a shiver down Alexander's spine. If Emily had gone to such lengths to protect Lila, and possibly him, then whatever danger she feared must have been real. and significant. Determined to uncover the truth, Alexander decided to dig deeper into Emily's past. He hired a team of private investigators, sparing no expense to piece together the fragments of her life before she disappeared. In the meantime, he continued to build a relationship with Lila, trying to fill the void left by her mother's absence. As weeks turned into months, the investigators uncovered bits and pieces of information that painted a clearer picture of Emily's life. She had grown up in a small town outside the city, where she lived quietly with her parents until their untimely deaths in a car accident. Afterward, she moved to the city to start fresh, working odd jobs to support herself. That's when she met Alexander, a chance encounter at a charity gala that changed both their lives forever. But there was another detail that caught Alexander's attention. Shortly before meeting him, Emily had briefly worked as a receptionist for a law firm. One of the partners at the firm was named Victor Kane, a man rumored to have ties to organized crime. The name struck a chord with Alexander. He remembered hearing whispers about Kane during his early days in business, rumors of corruption, threats, and violence. Could Kane have been the reason Emily fled? Was she running from him? And if so, why hadn't she trusted Alexander enough to tell him the truth? These questions consumed him, fueling his determination to find answers. Meanwhile, Alexander and Lila grew closer with each passing day. He learned that she was smart, resourceful, and fiercely independent, traits she clearly inherited from Emily. She dreamed of becoming an artist, filling sketchbooks with vibrant drawings whenever she had free time. Alexander encouraged her, buying her art supplies and enrolling her in classes. Slowly but surely, Lila began to trust him, seeing him not just as the man who knew her mother, but as someone who genuinely cared about her future. One afternoon, while going through documents provided by the investigators, Alexander stumbled upon something startling. A police report dated shortly after Emily's disappearance mentioned Victor Kane's name in connection with a string of violent crimes, including extortion and attempted murder. According to the report, Kane had vanished around the same time. Emily did, leading authorities to believe he might have fled the country. The timing was too coincidental to ignore. Convinced that Kane was the key to understanding Emily's actions, Alexander shared his findings with Lila. Her reaction was immediate and visceral. She paled, clutching the edge of the table as if bracing herself against bad news. "Do you think he's still out there?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Alexander admitted. "But if he is, we need to be careful. We can't let him hurt anyone else." Together, they devised a plan. Using the evidence gathered by the investigators, they contacted the authorities, providing them with detailed information about Kane's activities. The process was nerve-wracking, fraught with uncertainty and fear. What if Kane came looking for them? What if he discovered Lila's existence? Despite the risks, Alexander refused to back down. He owed it to Emily and to Lila to ensure that justice was served. In the midst of all this, Alexander found himself reflecting on his own life. For years, he had defined himself by his wealth and success, using work as a shield to avoid confronting his emotions. But meeting Lila had changed him. She reminded him of Emily in so many ways, not just physically but in spirit. Like her mother, she had a quiet strength that inspired admiration. And like her mother, she deserved happiness, safety, and love. As the investigation progressed, Alexander and Lila became inseparable. They spent hours talking, laughing, and sharing memories of Emily. Sometimes they cried together, mourning the woman who had shaped both their lives in profound ways. Other times they celebrated her legacy, finding joy in the bond they had formed because of her. Through it all, Alexander realized that he wasn't just searching for answers about Emily. He was rediscovering parts of himself he had long forgotten. Finally, after months of waiting, the authorities made a breakthrough. Acting on the evidence provided by Alexander, they tracked down an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Inside, they found documents linking Kane to multiple criminal enterprises, along with evidence implicating him in several unsolved cases. Though Kane himself remained missing, the authorities assured Alexander that they would continue their search, vowing to bring him to justice. With the threat neutralized, at least for now, Alexander allowed himself a moment of peace. Sitting beside Lila in the living room of his penthouse apartment, he looked at the photograph of Emily one last time. This time, instead of pain, he felt gratitude. Gratitude for the love she had given him, for the daughter she had left behind, and for the courage she had shown in protecting them both. Though Emily was gone, her presence lingered in every smile Lila shared, every story she told, and every moment of laughter they experienced together. Alexander knew that moving forward wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years he felt hopeful. He had found family in the most unexpected place, and with Lila by his side, he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The breakthrough in the investigation brought a sense of relief, but it also opened new doors of uncertainty for Alexander and Lila. The authorities had uncovered damning evidence against Victor Kane, confirming that he was indeed a dangerous criminal with ties to organized crime. However, the man himself remained elusive, his whereabouts unknown. This left both Alexander and Lila on edge. They knew that as long as Kane was out there, they couldn't truly feel safe. But instead of letting fear consume them, they decided to focus on what mattered most, honoring Emily's memory and building a life together. Alexander took Lila under his wing completely, offering her not just financial support but also emotional guidance. He encouraged her to pursue her dreams of becoming an artist, enrolling her in advanced art classes and setting up a small studio in his penthouse apartment. Lila, who had spent years juggling school and work at the diner, was initially hesitant to accept such generosity. She worried about being a burden or losing her independence, but Alexander reassured her, explaining that helping her was his way of staying connected to Emily. "Your mother gave me some of the best years of my life," he told her one evening as they sat painting side by side. "Let me give something back to you." Their bond deepened with each passing day. Alexander marveled at how much Lila reminded him of Emily, the way she tilted her head when concentrating, the mischievous glint in her eye when she teased him, and the quiet strength she displayed when faced with challenges. Yet Lila was also uniquely herself. She had a sharp wit and a curious mind, often asking questions that caught Alexander off guard. One evening, while flipping through old photo albums, she paused at a picture of Alexander and Emily dancing at a charity gala. "Did you two ever fight?" Lila asked suddenly, her tone casual but her eyes probing. Alexander chuckled softly, running a finger over the photograph. "Of course we did. Everyone fights. But our arguments were never about big things. They were always about little misunderstandings. Like the time I forgot our anniversary because I was stuck in a meeting. She didn't speak to me for 3 days. Lila grinned. "Sounds like Mom. She could hold a grudge better than anyone. But she forgave easily too," Alexander added, his voice softening. "That's what made her special. She believed in second chances." These conversations helped Lila piece together a fuller picture of her mother, someone she barely remembered from her childhood. Through Alexander's stories, Emily came alive again, not just as a protective parent, but as a vibrant, loving woman who had dreams and flaws like anyone else. For Lila, this was invaluable. It allowed her to see her mother not as a distant figure shrouded in mystery, but as a real person who had loved deeply and sacrificed greatly. Despite the growing closeness between them, there were still moments of tension. Lila struggled with feelings of guilt, wondering if accepting Alexander's help meant betraying her mother's wishes. After all, Emily had gone to great lengths to keep her hidden from the world, including from Alexander. One night, after a particularly emotional discussion, Lila voiced her concerns. "I feel like I'm breaking some kind of promise to her," Lila admitted, tears welling up in her eyes. "She worked so hard to protect me. And now here I am, living in your fancy apartment, letting you take care of everything. What if she wouldn't have wanted this?" Alexander placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Lila, your mother loved you more than anything. Everything she did was for you, to give you a chance at a better life. If she were here today, she'd want you to be happy. That's all I want too." Though Alexander's words provided some comfort, Lila couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to uncover about her mother's past. She began digging through boxes of old belongings that Emily had left behind, hoping to find clues that might shed light on why she had fled and what she had been running from. Among the items, she discovered a journal, its pages filled with handwritten notes, sketches, and fragments of poetry. As she read through it, Lila realized that the journal wasn't just a record of daily thoughts. It was a map of Emily's fears, hopes, and secrets. One entry stood out in particular. Dated shortly before Emily disappeared, it read, "I can't risk telling Alex the truth. He'll try to fix it, and that will only put him in danger. Some battles aren't meant to be fought, not even by the bravest hearts." Beneath the Yao words was a sketch of a shadowy figure labeled simply as VK. Lila's heart sank. VK had to stand for Victor Kane. Her mother had known exactly who she was dealing with, and she had chosen to face it alone, rather than involve the people she loved. When Alila showed the journal to Alexander, he felt a surge of emotions: anger, sadness, and regret. Anger at himself for not noticing the signs, sadness for the pain Emily must have endured, and regret for not being able to protect her. But more than anything, he felt a renewed determination to ensure that Kane would never hurt anyone again. Together, they decided to take matters into their own hands. Using the information from the journal and the evidence gathered by the investigators, Alexander and Lila devised a plan to draw Kane out of hiding. They knew it was risky, but they also knew it was necessary. With the help of trusted allies, including private security experts and former law enforcement officers, they set up a sting operation designed to lure Kane into exposing himself. The plan involved creating fake documents suggesting that Emily had left behind incriminating evidence against him. If Kane believed the documents existed, he would come looking for them and walk straight into a trap. As they prepared for the operation, Alexander and Lila grew even closer. They spent hours strategizing, rehearsing their roles, and preparing for every possible outcome. Lila proved to be surprisingly resourceful, contributing ideas that even seasoned professionals hadn't considered. Watching her transform from a shy, uncertain girl into a confident young woman filled Alexander with pride. He realized that Emily's legacy lived on not just in Lila's appearance, but in her resilience and intelligence as well. Finally, the day of the operation arrived. Alexander and Lila positioned themselves in a safe house, monitoring communications and waiting for any sign of Kane. Hours passed without incident, and just as they began to wonder if their plan had failed, a message came through. Kane had taken the bait. Surveillance cameras captured him entering an abandoned warehouse where the fake documents had been planted. Within minutes, law enforcement teams moved in, surrounding the building and cutting off all exits. From their vantage point, Alexander and Lila watched the events unfold on a live feed. When Kane was finally apprehended, relief washed over them like a tidal wave. For the first time in years, they could breathe freely, knowing that the man who had haunted Emily's life, and indirectly theirs, was no longer a threat. As Kane was led away in handcuffs, Lila whispered a silent thank you to her mother. "You don't have to run anymore," she said softly. "We're safe." In the aftermath of the operation, life began to settle into a new rhythm for Alexander and Lila. With Kane behind bars, the weight of fear lifted, allowing them to focus on healing and rebuilding. Lila threw herself into her art, channeling her emotions into powerful pieces that spoke of love, loss, and redemption. One of her paintings, a vibrant portrait of Emily, caught Alexander's eye. It depicted Emily standing in a field of wildflowers, her arms outstretched as if embracing the sky. "That's beautiful," Alexander said, his voice thick with emotion. "It's how I imagine her," Lila replied, smiling softly. "Free, happy, at peace." For Alexander, seeing Lila thrive was the greatest gift he could have hoped for. He had lost Emily, but in finding Lila, he had gained something equally precious: a family. Together, they vowed to honor Emily's memory by living fully and fearlessly, cherishing every moment as a gift. Though the scars of the past would always remain, they had learned that love doesn't vanish, it transforms. finding new ways to endure. The arrest of Victor Kane marked a turning point in Alexander and Lila's lives. For the first time in years, they could breathe without the constant shadow of fear looming over them. The authorities had enough evidence to ensure Kane would spend the rest of his life behind bars, and with each passing day, the threat he posed faded further into the background. Yet while the immediate danger was gone, the emotional scars remained. Both Alexander and Lila knew that healing wouldn't happen overnight. It would take time, patience, and a lot of soul-searching. In the weeks following Kane's capture, Alexander found himself reflecting deeply on his own life. He had spent decades building an empire, amassing wealth and power, but none of it had brought him true happiness. It wasn't until he met Lila and began piecing together Emily's story that he realized how much he had been missing. Love, connection, family, these were the things that truly mattered. And now, with Lila by his side, he felt a sense of purpose he hadn't known in years. Lila, too, was navigating her own journey of self-discovery. Growing up, she had always felt like an outsider, burdened by secrets and the weight of her mother's sacrifices. But now, surrounded by Alexander's unwavering support, she began to see herself differently. She wasn't just Emily's daughter. She was her own person with talents, dreams, and a future full of possibilities. Her art became a way for her to process her emotions, and she poured everything into her work, her grief, her anger, her hope. Each painting told a story, not just of her mother but of her own resilience. One afternoon, as they sat together in the studio, Alexander watched Lila paint. The canvas before her was alive with color, a swirling mix of blues, greens, and golds that seemed to dance across the surface. "What are you working on?" he asked curiously. "It's called The Bridge," Lila replied, stepping back to examine her work. "It's about finding a way forward after loss. You know, connecting the past to the present." Alexander nodded thoughtfully. "It's beautiful, just like your mom." Lila smiled, though there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Do you think she'd be proud of me?" "I know she would," Alexander said firmly. "She gave you her strength, her creativity, her heart. Everything you do honors her." Though their bond continued to grow stronger, there were still moments when the pain of losing Emily felt overwhelming. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of Alexander's penthouse overlooking the city lights, Lila turned to him with a question that had clearly been weighing on her mind. "Do you ever wonder what life would have been like if Mom hadn't left?" she asked softly. "All the time," Alexander admitted, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "I imagine us growing old together, raising kids, traveling the world. But I also know that your mom made the choices she did because she loved us. She wanted to protect you no matter the cost." Lila nodded slowly, her fingers tracing the edge of the photograph she always carried with her, the one of Emily and her as a child. "Sometimes I wish I could talk to her, ask her why she did what she did, but then I remind myself that she must have had her reasons bigger than any of us." Determined to keep Emily's memory alive, Alexander and Lila decided to create something meaningful in her honor. They established the Emily Carter Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to helping women and children escape abusive situations and start new lives. The foundation provided resources such as safe housing, legal assistance, job training, and counseling, all things Emily might have needed during her time on the run. Knowing that they were making a difference in others' lives gave both Alexander and Lila a profound sense of fulfillment. As word of the foundation spread, people began reaching out with stories of their own struggles and triumphs. Many expressed gratitude for the support they received, crediting the foundation with giving them a second chance at life. Among these stories was one that particularly resonated with Lila. A young woman named Sarah had fled an abusive relationship with her 2 children, leaving everything behind. With the foundation's help, she secured a fresh start, enrolling in college and pursuing a degree in social work. When Sarah sent a heartfelt letter thanking them, Lila couldn't help but see parallels between Sarah's journey and her mother's. "It's like we're carrying on her legacy," Lila said. to Alexander one evening as they read through letters from beneficiaries. "Mom may be gone, but her spirit lives on in the people we help." While the foundation kept them busy, Alexander and Lila also made time for personal growth. Lila excelled in her art classes, earning recognition for her unique style and emotional depth. Her paintings began appearing in galleries, drawing praise from critics and collectors alike. One piece, a hauntingly beautiful depiction of a mother shielding her child from unseen dangers, was purchased by a prominent museum. Standing beside Alexander at the exhibition opening, Lila felt a surge of pride. "You're amazing, you know that?" Alexander whispered, his eyes glistening with pride. "I couldn't have done it without you," Lila replied, hugging him tightly. "You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." For Alexander, seeing Lila thrive was the greatest reward. He had entered her life as a stranger, driven by guilt and longing, but over time, he had become so much more. He was a mentor, a protector, and most importantly, a father figure. Though they hadn't formally adopted each other, the bond they shared transcended labels. They were family, not bound by blood, but by love and shared experiences. Despite their progress, there were still unresolved questions lingering in the background. What exactly had happened between Emily and Victor Kane? Why had Emily chosen to flee instead of seeking help? And most importantly, how could they ensure that no one else had to endure what she went through? To answer these questions, Alexander hired a team of researchers to delve deeper into Kane's criminal network. Their findings revealed a web of corruption that stretched far beyond what anyone had imagined. It became clear that Emily had been caught in the crossfire of something much larger than herself, a battle she had fought alone to shield those she loved. Armed with this knowledge, Alexander and Lila vowed to continue fighting for justice. They expanded the Foundation's mission to include advocacy against systemic corruption and violence, partnering with organizations around the world to amplify their impact. Through it all, they remained steadfast in their belief that change was possible, one life at a time. One evening, as they stood side by side looking at the stars, Lila turned to Alexander with a smile. "You know, Mom used to say that even in the darkest nights, the stars shine brightest." "She was right," Alexander replied, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "And thanks to her, we've learned to shine too." In the end, Alexander and Lila discovered that healing wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about embracing it, learning from it, and using it to build a better future. Together, they had transformed pain into purpose, loss into love, and tragedy into triumph. And though Emily was no longer with them, her presence was everywhere. In the laughter they shared, the tears they shed, and the countless lives they touched. As months turned into years, the Emily Carter Foundation grew into a beacon of hope for countless women and children trapped in dangerous situations. What had started as a small initiative driven by Alexander and Lila's desire to honor Emily's memory blossomed into a global movement. The foundation opened shelters in multiple cities, launched educational programs, and partnered with law enforcement agencies to combat domestic violence and human trafficking. It became more than just an organization. It was a symbol of resilience, courage, and the power of love. For Alexander, the foundation represented redemption. He had spent most of his life chasing wealth and success, believing that material achievements would bring him fulfillment. But it wasn't until he dedicated himself to helping others that he truly found meaning. Every time he met someone whose life had been transformed by the foundation, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He often thought about how proud Emily would have been, not just of the work they were doing, but of the man he had become. Lila, meanwhile, continued to flourish both personally and professionally. Her art gained international acclaim, with exhibitions held in galleries across Europe and North America. Critics praised her ability to convey raw emotion through color and form, calling her work a testament to survival and strength. One of her most celebrated pieces, titled "The Guardian," depicted a mother shielding her child under a canopy of stars, a tribute to Emily's sacrifice. The painting sold at auction for a record-breaking sum, which Lila donated entirely to the foundation. "I don't need the money," she told Alexander when he questioned her decision. "This is Mom's legacy. If we can use it to help even one person, it's worth it." Despite her growing fame, Lila remained grounded, always remembering where she came from. She visited the foundation's shelters regularly, spending hours talking to the women and children who sought refuge there. She listened to their stories, shared her own experiences, and offered words of encouragement. To many, she became a source of inspiration, a living reminder that no matter how dark things seemed, there was always a way forward. One day, while visiting a shelter in a neighboring city, Lila met a young girl named Mia. She was only 10 years old but carried herself with a maturity far beyond her years. When Lila asked about her family, Mia hesitated before explaining that her mother had been killed protecting her from an abusive partner. Now, she lived in the shelter with her grandmother, who worked tirelessly to provide for them. Despite everything she had endured, Mia's eyes sparkled with determination. "I want to be an artist when I grow up," she confided in Lila during one of their conversations. "That's wonderful," Lila exclaimed, smiling warmly. "Do you like to draw?" Mia nodded eagerly, pulling out a sketchbook filled with simple yet expressive drawings. Lila flipped through the pages, marveling at the creativity and emotion behind each piece. "These are amazing," she said sincerely. "You have a real talent." Inspired by Mia's passion, Lila decided to mentor her, teaching her techniques and encouraging her to pursue her dreams. Over time, their bond deepened, and Lila began to see glimpses of her younger self in Mia, someone who had lost so much but refused to give up. Watching Mia thrive reminded Lila of her own journey and the people who had believed in her when she needed it most. Back home, Alexander noticed a subtle shift in Lila's demeanor. While she had always been compassionate, she now radiated a quiet confidence, a certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. He realized that she wasn't just carrying on Emily's legacy, she was creating her own. Together they had built something extraordinary, a family bound not by blood but by shared values, mutual respect and unwavering love. Yet even as their lives improved, there were still moments of reflection and grief. On the anniversary of Emily's death, Alexander and Lila visited her gravesite together. They brought flowers and sat quietly beside the headstone, sharing memories and tears. For Alexander, it was a chance to express his gratitude, to thank Emily for the love she had given him and for the daughter she had entrusted to him. For Lila, it was an opportunity to connect with the mother she barely remembered, to tell her all the things she wished she could say face to face. "You'd be so proud of her," Alexander said softly, placing a hand on Lila's shoulder. "She's incredible, just like you." Lila wiped away a tear, nodding. "I hope she knows how much we miss her, how much we love her." Afterward, they returned to the penthouse and spent the evening looking through old photographs and mementos. Among them was a letter Emily had written shortly before disappearing. Addressed to "Whoever finds this," it contained instructions for keeping Lila safe along with heartfelt apologies to those left behind. Reading it aloud, Alexander and Lila felt a mix of emotions: sadness for the pain Emily must have endured, admiration for her bravery, and gratitude for the sacrifices she had made. "She gave us everything," Lila said finally, folding the "you" letter carefully and tucking it back into its envelope. "Now it's our turn to give back." In the following months, Alexander and Lila doubled their efforts to expand the foundation's reach. They organized fundraising events, collaborated with celebrities and influencers, and launched awareness campaigns to educate the public about domestic violence and its impact. Their hard work paid off, attracting donations from around the world and enabling them to open new facilities and programs. Each success brought them closer to fulfilling Emily's unspoken wish to create a safer, kinder world for future generations. But perhaps the most significant milestone came when Lila received an invitation to speak at a major conference on gender equality and social justice. Standing on stage in front of thousands of attendees, she delivered a powerful speech about her mother's courage, her own struggles, and the importance of supporting survivors. My mom taught me that love isn't just about being there in person, Lila said, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. It's about making choices that protect the ones you care about, even if it means letting go. And today I stand here because of her sacrifice, and because of the people who refused to let me fall. Her words resonated deeply with the audience, earning a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. As she stepped off the stage, Alexander greeted her with open arms, his eyes shining with pride. "You did it," he whispered, hugging her tightly. "Your mom would be so proud." That night, as they celebrated with friends and colleagues, Lila reflected on how far they had come. From the lonely days working at the diner to the bustling energy of the conference hall, her life had changed, in ways she never imagined. Yet through it all, one thing remained constant: the love and support she shared with Alexander. Together, they had faced unimaginable challenges and emerged stronger than ever. Looking ahead, Lila knew there was still work to be done. The fight against injustice was ongoing, requiring relentless dedication and compassion. But she also knew that as long as she had Alexander by her side, and Emily's spirit guiding her, she could overcome anything. As fireworks lit up the sky above the city, marking the end of the conference, Lila leaned against Alexander, feeling an overwhelming sense of peace. "We've come a long way," she murmured, gazing at the colorful bursts of light. "And we're just getting started," Alexander replied, squeezing her hand gently. Together, they watched the night unfold, grateful for the journey that had brought them here, and excited for the adventures that lay ahead. Years passed, and the bond between Alexander and Lila only grew stronger. What had started as a chance encounter in a small diner had transformed into an unbreakable partnership, a father-daughter relationship built on trust, love, and shared purpose. The Emily Carter Foundation continued to thrive, touching countless lives and becoming a global symbol of hope and resilience. But for Alexander and Lila, the foundation was more than just an organization. It was a testament to Emily's enduring legacy and the sacrifices she had made. Lila, now in her mid-20s, had blossomed into a confident and accomplished woman. Her art career reached new heights, with her work displayed in prestigious galleries around the world. Yet despite her success, she remained deeply committed to the foundation, using her platform to raise awareness about issues affecting women and children. She traveled extensively, speaking at conferences, meeting survivors, and advocating for systemic change. Each trip reinforced her belief that even the smallest acts of kindness could spark monumental transformations. Alexander, too, had undergone a profound transformation. Once consumed by work and ambition, he now prioritized relationships over riches. He spent his days mentoring young entrepreneurs, volunteering at the foundation's shelters, and supporting Lila in all her endeavors. Though he still carried the weight of losing Emily, he found solace in knowing that her spirit lived on through the lives they had touched together. One summer evening, as they sat on the balcony of their penthouse apartment, Lila turned to Alexander with a thoughtful expression. "Do you ever think about how different our lives would have been if Mom hadn't left?" she asked softly. "All the time," Alexander replied, gazing out at the city skyline bathed in golden twilight. "But I also know that everything happens for a reason. If your mom hadn't made the choices she did, we wouldn't be here today, with each other." Lila smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "I like to think she planned this somehow, that she knew we'd find each other." Their conversation shifted to memories of Emily, the laughter, the quiet moments, the lessons she had taught them both. They spoke about her courage, her selflessness, and the way she had shaped their lives in ways neither of them could have anticipated. By honoring her memory, they had not only healed old wounds, but also created something beautiful. A family, bound by love rather than blood. A few weeks later, Lila received an unexpected letter. It was from Mia, the young girl she had mentored years earlier. Now a teenager, Mia wrote to thank Lila for believing in her when no one else did. Enclosed, with the letter, was a photograph of Mia holding a paintbrush, standing beside a vibrant mural she had painted in her school cafeteria. The mural depicted a tree with sprawling branches, its leaves inscribed with messages of hope and gratitude. "You inspired me to dream bigger than I ever thought possible," Mia wrote. "Because of you, I know I can do anything." Tears welled up in Lila's eyes as she read the letter. She showed it to Alexander, who smiled proudly. "She's incredible," he said, looking at the photograph. "Just like someone else I know." Lila laughed, shaking her head. "She's amazing. And look at what she's done. She's already changing the world." Moments like these reminded them why they had dedicated their lives to helping others. Every story of survival, every act of kindness, and every life transformed was a victory. Not just for the individuals involved, but for humanity as a whole. Together, Alexander and Lila had proven that love and compassion could overcome even the darkest challenges. As the years went by, they began planning for the future. Lila decided to write a book, a memoir chronicling her journey from a struggling waitress to an internationally acclaimed artist and advocate, titled The Light After Loss. The book explored themes of grief, identity, and redemption, weaving personal anecdotes with insights gained through her work with the foundation. When it was finally published, it became an instant bestseller, resonating with readers from all walks of life. Meanwhile, Alexander focused on expanding the foundation's reach, establishing partnerships with international organizations to address global issues such as gender-based violence and child trafficking. He often joked that retirement wasn't in his vocabulary, but those close to him knew that his tireless efforts stemmed from a deep sense of responsibility to Emily, to Lila, and to everyone counting on them. On the 10th anniversary of the Foundation's founding, Alexander and Lila hosted a gala to celebrate its achievements. The event brought together donors, volunteers, and beneficiaries, filling the grand ballroom with laughter, music, and heartfelt speeches. As Lila took the stage to deliver the keynote address, she looked out at the sea of faces, some familiar, others new, and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "This foundation isn't just my mom's legacy," she began, her voice steady and clear. "It's yours too. Each of you has played a part in making it what it is today. Together, we've shown the world that even in the face of unimaginable adversity, there is always hope, always light." Her words earned a thunderous applause, bringing tears to many eyes, including Alexander's. As she stepped off the stage, he pulled her into a tight embrace. "You're extraordinary," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Your mom would be so proud." That night, as fireworks lit up the sky above the city, Alexander and Lila stood side by side, watching the colorful bursts reflect off the glass windows of nearby skyscrapers. For a moment, neither spoke. They simply enjoyed the silence, the beauty of the moment, and the knowledge that they had built something truly remarkable. "I never thought I'd say this," Alexander said, finally breaking the quiet. "But I'm glad things turned out the way they did. Losing your mom was the hardest thing I've ever faced, but finding you, it gave me a second chance at happiness." Lila smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "Me too. I think she planned this all along. She wanted us to find each other, to heal together." In the end, Alexander and Lila discovered that while loss leaves scars, it also opens doors to unexpected blessings. Through their shared pain, they had forged a connection that transcended time and circumstance. They had honored Emily's memory, not by clinging to the past, but by embracing the future, with open hearts, open minds, and an unwavering commitment to making the world a better place. And so, under the starlit sky, surrounded by the hum of celebration, they vowed to continue their journey. Not as two people defined by tragedy, but as a family united by love, purpose, and the belief that even in the darkest nights, the stars shine brightest.